word why. What a curious word. The kind of word that can make us cringe, feel defensive, or even distant. But you know, sometimes why is the key. The key that can unlock so much to our lives. Join me as we explore the why with fascinating contributors to the world. Those that entertain us, inform us, teach us about life, and if we're lucky, inspire the next in all of us. I'm your host, Dr. Rod Berger, and welcome to Headroom, a production of Rainlight and co-produced by Old Soul. Let's go.
Alex, great to spend some time with you.
Yes, no problem.
You've had kind of quite a wild ride the last, let's say, 8 weeks.
Yeah, sure.
From a health perspective. You feel back and ready?
I do. I feel, I don't think it's fair to say I'm 100%, but recovering, getting fitter every day, and enough to drive a race car. Just.
So let's rewind. We were talking sort of off camera about what generation the kind folks are here, right? Relative to you or me and these sorts of things.
Sure.
When did it settle in that you were a driver, Williams Racing?
Yeah.
I would imagine a dream come true.
It was obviously a strange period of my life because I spent a year away from the sport, and there's a definite uncertainty that you're ever going to come back. But the guys here at Williams, they are like a family, and they really, they wanted me. It really felt good to know that there was an element there where they valued me, and they gave me a chance. So it was almost the first day I walked through the doors, back at the factory in Grove in the UK. It's a huge place, a very impressive place. And it was actually the guys behind the cameras. I think they were the ones filming my first shots of me wearing official Williams clothes, and that's that period where you're like, okay, I'm here as a Williams driver. Something which is also quite daunting to some extent, because I wouldn't say I'm young, but they look up to you for leadership and for the experience I had from being at Red Bull. You've got to be that figure to the guys and make sure that you use your experience in the right way to lead the team into the right positions.
Tell me about when you were, obviously I love the background on you and just as a young boy, right? And the passion for racing early on.
Sure.
But when was the first time, do you remember the very first time you felt in your body the power of speed?
Yeah. So initially, when I very first started, I think my dad tells me this story. I was 5 years old. I was went to Disneyland Paris, and I hated it. I was crying. I didn't want any of it. And he said, you hated it the first time you drove anything that moved. But then, very quickly, when I was maybe a year after, my dad got me like an electric Jeep. Like them, the little, they got like one gear.
One gear,
and that was it. And I was obsessed, completely obsessed with it. The year later, he got me my first go-kart. So I turned 7, and I was in primary school at the time. Every day after school, just
every
constant,
day,
relentless. Dad, you got to time me. And we had a farm next to our house, and they had a barn. And the farmer was very kind, and he lent us the space to use, and it was like a figure of 8. So just really simple, just up and around. I would do like 5 laps, and it was like a shootout. It felt like qualifying, and I would always try to beat my time from my record time, let's say, and it would just keep going like that.
Just constantly doing that.
Constant, until I was old enough to go to a real track for the first time, and that's kind of where it all started. So, yeah.
What was it like when you started to race against others? You weren't just on this figure 8, at the farm next to you, right?
Yeah. It was. I remember it clearly. I remember it like it was yesterday.
So take me into the cockpit. Like,
so firstly, I had a red car. I loved Michael Schumacher, so I was obsessed. So I had a red side pods, red suit. My dad put stickers all over my helmet to make me feel like a professional racing driver. And I think I finished 3rd that day. And it was different because at the end, I was 8 years old. I was racing against 12, 13-year-olds at the time. And it's just one of them things that I wasn't scared of it. I was just excited to finally get racing, I think. Yeah, it was one of them things where I was like, okay, now here we go. This is my first race. This is what I've been training for. For a year in the barn.
Right.
And we got going and it started from there. But honestly speaking, when I first started racing against other drivers, I was good. But my dad was my mechanic. He was my driver coach. That's kind of how it is back in the day. It was just a father and son thing, a bit of fun to do. And we struggled. We didn't, I didn't go out there and win everything on my first year. We definitely didn't know everything, how to set up the kart properly and all that kind of thing. But by the end of the year, I joined a team when I turned 9 years old, and it suddenly clicked.
It clicked.
And everything started to come, and suddenly we started to get results, started to get podiums, wins, and then won the British Championship.
Oh, you had an incredible streak where you didn't finish lower than third, right?
Yeah, I think I won every race but one. So
but one.
It was like one of them, just learning and growing. But yeah, that's kind of how it started.
Tell me about that experience with your dad. Like that just sounds magical. Right, a lot from a father's. I mean, we think sort of in America now, Formula One is a global sport, but that's that image of like a father and son throwing the baseball.
Yeah,
it's you thing. And your dad.
Very different, but same. Yeah. Yes, exactly. It's I have to say it's changing right now, and it's becoming less so, which is a real big shame. But at the very beginning, even it's how Lewis started, it's how I started. Your dad is kind of getting you into the sport for the first time. My dad has a huge passion for cars and racing. And he never got to drive a go-kart until he was, I think it was maybe 20, and that's where he found his love for it. And I believe he didn't want me to not figure it out and take so long to understand, how great of a sport it is. And so he got into, I call it semi-professional racing. Like him and his brother, they used to
in like a dad league.
Yeah, literally. And he would drive like these Renaults, these small hatchback cars, and they would go racing. But he got it into me very early, and it was quite exciting. We were going to races. I remember he would wake me up at like 4 a.m. and we would travel through the night or through the morning. I would just sleep in the car. Arrive Saturday after school, the day after school, arrive at the circuit, and the kart was on the roof. He put it down, put some fuel in, and
some great photos, I bet.
Yeah, really cool. And that's how it was. And of course, he was extremely passionate with it. He still comes to races now, and it's really nice to kind of show him around and see how it's all come about. And he knows. He follows everything, and he's still giving me advice.
Sounds like a symbiotic relationship. I mean,
exactly.
You're really connected in that way.
Headroom is produced by Old Soul, a one-stop marketing agency that understands the power of brand and nuance. Reach out to my guy Matt at Old Soul and supercharge your brand and content strategy. That's Old Soul. Shoot Matt a note at aoldsoul.com. That's AOLDSOUL.com. And now, back to our guest.
Was there the classic sort of kitchen table discussion as a family when it was pretty clear that you had a talent?
Weirdly, no. I wouldn't say so. What happened was, it was almost like letting the reins go, I think. So, in the beginning, as I said, we did everything together. And then as time went on, I was part of a team, joined a team. But of course, my dad and my mum took me everywhere. They watched every single race, all the way until I was kind of 13, 14. And by that point, I joined Red Bull already at a very early age. Even by 12 years old, I was a Red Bull junior driver. And as that kind of progresses, there's suddenly the world of sports Formula One gets bigger and bigger. And of course, at the time, I was only driving Formula 4, Formula 3, Formula 2. But that's when the sponsors start coming, the management starts coming, and all that kind of thing. So
it becomes real.
It becomes real, and we never really had a chat about it. I honestly would say it just, it was very clear what the goal was, And
I would think that would give you confidence.
yes,
Right? You don't even have to have the conversation.
Exactly. There was no real conversation. I think it was like, okay, I know
This is
what
the
I
next
want
step.
to do. They know what I want to do. They sacrificed a lot to get me into a position. I moved to Milton Keynes, which was my whole family did. I have 4 siblings. To be closer to Red Bull, that's where they're based, and I do feel very spoiled, and I definitely most probably. I'm sure my other siblings would say I was the golden child in the whole thing, because of course, they had to sacrifice a lot for me to be where I was.
Talk about being an athlete now in 2022.
Yes.
And the pressure from a brand. We talked at the very beginning about generations.
Yeah.
In essence, you're not just a driver. You're not just in Formula One. You're also Alex. You're a brand. You see all the people that are paying attention to us now, even in our conversation.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Is it an adjustment period?
It is. I got into Formula One because I loved racing, and I'm a very shy, introverted person by myself, and especially so when I was young. So when Formula One came about and everything, looked amazing, and it is amazing. At the same time, all the cameras around, all the people around, it is a shock to the system, and it's something which I can be honest, I didn't enjoy to begin with. It felt something like a chore and a job, and you almost had to tell yourself the racing bit's for free. You get paid to do all the other stuff. There's no real training that went on in terms of how to talk to people or anything.
Trial by fire.
It was trial by fire. I kind of felt like I got into Formula One so unexpected, so quickly, that I was suddenly in it and I was surrounded by it. And it was okay when things were going well. That's the easiest part. It's when things go bad. That's when it really starts to become something where you really need that core, small network of people that you fully trust.
So how do you stay grounded? How do you stay authentic to who you are, to the kid that was on the figure 8, without this getting too much?
I'd say, firstly, people around me, they're brutally honest. They keep me grounded, that's for sure. But it's also, it's not who I am. I actually don't like to be too flashy. I try to stay under the radar as much as I can. I have blonde hair now, but you were
saying mixed results, right? Keeping you honest.
yeah, exactly. My mom hates my haircut.
Your mom, okay.
But yeah, it's one of those things where it's just being surrounded by the right people. I feel like, and I'm definitely not going to change who I am.
So I previously interviewed Jenson Button, and he's talked about just what it's like to be in the car, and that's the most peaceful time for a driver. Given all the energy that Formula One brings, is that almost a sigh of relief once you get in?
It's the best feeling.
It is. So does life slow down? And that may sound odd at the speeds you're going.
It does, exactly. It's even, I can recall my first race, my first weekend ever in Formula One. So much of this was new to me. I arrived for my first day at work, my first weekend at work, and I was like, wow, look at all these cameras there, everything. It was almost intimidating to some extent, and you finally, walk over, get ready, get into the car. You're nervous because it's your first time at the circuit. I was in Australia at the time, and once you get your helmet on, once you're in the car, once you're strapped in, it's like bam. You know what you're doing. You're in control. This is what I've been born to do. This is what I know what I can do, and all that anxiety and pressure just goes away.
Just kind of washes away.
Exactly, and you're at one. You're in your area, little bubble. It's peaceful driving these cars. We've got so much noise around us. We can't hear anyone. We can't hear the fans. Yes, we have the engineer in our.
You can't hear us rooting you on.
You can't hear, unfortunately not. But it's true that once you're in that zone, it's a very peaceful zone, and of course it's what I've grown up as 6 years old, 7 years old. This is my peace, basically.
Let's put a wrap on this. So I interviewed Jost Capito, the CEO of Williams, and he talked about the father-son relationship with the drivers.
Yes,
obviously you, right?
Yes.
And you talked about how this all started with your dad.
Yes. Yeah.
kind of come full circle for me in what it means, not just being on a team, but being on a team that values that relationship
Yeah, sure.
in such what seems like a very deep and passionate way.
So it's one of the big things, one of the big appeals about Williams, in my opinion, is it is a true family. If you look around and you see the relationships with the mechanics, with the engineers, with everyone at the factory as well, that most people don't tend to see. There's a real tight bond there, and a lot of the people here, even the engineers, my engineer, he has family. He's not here this weekend because he's with his family, spending good time with his family. It's a great atmosphere. It shows there is a true good chemistry, great chemistry within the team, and I feel like because of that, everyone's wanting to. There's a lot of pride within the team, and we want to do good because we want everyone to do good. We want everyone.
You want the family to do well,
exactly,
right? Yeah,
exactly. And it is special. Of course, we're not where we want to be right now, but as a family, we feel that, and we know what we need to do. We know we need to get better.
You've got a foundation. Feels like.
We do, and it's exciting, and I have no doubts that we'll bounce back and be stronger next year.
Well, I look forward to catching up with you at the next race, where maybe the hair will be a little bit different. We'll have to see. Maybe Mom will intervene.
Yeah. Maybe I'll just go rogue and like a teenage angst.
Shave your head.
Yeah. I was thinking like lime green.
Oh, lime green. There you go. Continued success.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the plunge into Headroom, where we uncover the why behind the what and who impacting our lives. Headroom is a production of Rainlight and co-produced by our friends at Old Soul. I'm your host, Dr. Rod Berger, and this is Headroom.